The rain battered London's cobblestone streets, a relentless drumbeat that mirrored Eleanor Voss's restless heart. At 32, she was the sole heir to the Vosses' fortune, sprawling empire of real estate and old money that cloaked her in privilege but left her soul threadbare. Her mansion in Kensington, with its towering marble columns and gilded chandeliers, felt more like a mausoleum than a home. She paced the grand study, her heels clicking against the polished oak floor, her mind replaying the same question that had haunted her for years. Why did they leave me? Her parents' death a decade ago, a tragic car accident, ever sat right with her. The police reports were too neat, the details too sparse. Eleanor's fingers traced the edge of a framed photo on her desk. Her mother's warm smile, her father's steady gaze. She could still smell her mother's lavender perfume, feel the weight of her father's hand on her shoulder. But those memories were fading, like ink smudged by time. She slammed the frame down, the glass rattling, and turned to the window. The city blurred into a gray haze, and for a moment she swore she saw a shadow move in the garden below. "Kael," she called, her voice sharp but tinged with unease. Kael had been in her employ for 3 years, a quiet man with obsidian eyes and an uncanny knack for appearing exactly when needed. Was her driver, her confidant, her shadow, always there, yet somehow invisible. She'd never questioned his presence. It was just there, like the furniture or the rain. But lately, she'd caught him in odd moments, whispering in a language she didn't recognize, slipping through doors that should have been locked. It unsettled her, like a melody played just out of tune. The study door creaked open, and Kael stepped in, his black coat damp from the rain. He was tall, with a lean strength that seemed coiled, ready to spring. His face, all sharp angles and unreadable calm, gave nothing away. "You called, Miss Voss?" His voice was low, a velvet rumble that carried an accent she could never place, not quite British, not quite anything. Eleanor crossed her arms, her silk blouse catching the dim light. "Were you in the garden just now?" she asked, her tone accusing. "I saw someone." Kael's eyes flickered, a brief shadow crossing his face. "Oh, da 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 our eyes. Don't patronize me, Kael. I know what I saw. She stepped closer, catching the faint scent of earth and something sharper, like iron or ash. And last week, I heard you in the East Wing. That door's been locked since I was a child. What were you doing there? For the first time, Kael hesitated. His fingers twitched at his side, as if resisting the urge to reach for something. Some doors, he said carefully, are meant to stay locked. For your safety. My safety? Eleanor laughed, but it was brittle, masking the unease curling in her chest. I'm not a child, Kael. I don't need protecting from my own house. She turned away, her hands trembling slightly. She hated how he made her feel safe, yet infuriatingly out of control. You're my servant, not my keeper. The word servant hung in the air, heavy and wrong. Kael's jaw tightened, and for a moment his calm facade cracked, revealing something raw, almost wounded. Is that what you think I am? He asked softly, his voice carrying a weight that made her breath catch. Before she could respond, a low hum filled the room, like the vibration of a tuning fork.
Ow.
The air grew thick, charged with an energy that prickled her skin. Kael's eyes locked onto hers, and she saw something impossible. His pupils glowed faintly, like embers in a dying fire. Eleanor, he said, using her first name for the first time, there are things you don't understand, things I've kept from you, but the time for secrets is over. Her heart pounded, a mix of fear and curiosity flooding her senses. What are you talking about? She demanded, stepping back. The room seemed to tilt, the shadows lengthening. Kael moved to the bookshelf, his fingers brushing a carved symbol hidden in the wood, a circle bisected by a jagged line. This house, he said, is more than it seems, and so am I. He pressed the symbol, and the bookshelf shuddered, sliding aside to reveal a stone archway. Beyond it, a shimmering veil of light pulsed, like liquid starlight. The air smelled of ozone and something ancient, like forgotten temples. Eleanor's breath hitched. What? What is that? Kael turned to her, his expression unreadable but his eyes blazing with purpose. The truth, Eleanor. Your truth. Not your servantine, your protector. And this is the way to your destiny. He extended a hand, his voice both a challenge and a plea. Come with me. Her mind screamed to run, to call for help, to cling to the safety of her known world. But her heart, that aching, empty thing, yearned for answers, for meaning, for something more than the hollow life she'd been living. The portal's light bathed her face, warm and alive, whispering promises of secrets unveiled. She looked at Kael, at the man she thought she knew, and felt the ground shift beneath her. Eleanor, he said, his voice softer now, you have to choose. Stay here, safe but alone, or follow me and face what you were born for. Her fingers hovered over his outstretched hand, the weight of the moment crushing her. The rain outside stopped, leaving only silence and the hum of the portal. She took a step forward, her heart racing, and the figure on the bridge loomed like a specter, its cloak rippling as if woven from the shadows themselves. Eleanor's pulse thundered in her ears, the air thick with a pressure that made her skin crawl. The glowing river below cast an eerie light, illuminating the figure's eyes twin orbs of molten gold that seemed to see through her, peeling back layers of her soul she didn't know existed. Kael's grip on her hand tightened, his body a taut barrier between her and the stranger. His blade gleamed faintly, but his stance was wary, not aggressive, as if he knew this was no ordinary threat. Who are you? Eleanor demanded, her voice steadier than she felt. The figure's presence made her feel exposed, like a child caught in a storm. But she refused to cower. She'd followed Kael into this mad world. She wouldn't shrink now. The figure tilted its head, a smile curling lips that were too perfect, too sharp. I am Cypher, herald of the Black Kings, it said, its voice a chorus of whispers that echoed in her mind. And you, Eleanor Voss, are an unexpected spark in our eternal night. The words were both a greeting and a warning, laced with a curiosity that made her stomach twist. Kael stepped forward, his voice low and edged with steel. She's under my protection, Cypher. State your purpose. Cypher's golden eyes flicked to Kael, amusement glinting in their depths. Your protection, Guardian. How quaint. The kings have felt her power. They summon her to the court of obsidian. Refusal is unwise. The herald's gaze returned to Eleanor, and she felt it like a physical touch, probing, assessing. Come, Lightbearer. Destiny does not wait. Eleanor's mind reeled. Lightbearer. The term echoed from the Wraith attack, from Kael's cryptic warnings. She wanted to demand answers, to scream at the absurdity of it all, but the weight of Cypher's stare pinned her words. Kael's hand on hers was the only anchor keeping her from unraveling. We'll go, he said, his tone final, though his eyes flicked to her with a silent question. Are you ready? She wasn't, but she nodded, her jaw tight, and followed as Cypher led them across the bridge. The river's glow pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. She swore she heard whispers in its flow fragments of voices calling her name. Her parents' faces flashed in her mind, their smiles tinged with sorrow, and she blinked back the sting of tears. This place was unraveling her, stirring memories and emotions she'd buried deep. The path beyond the bridge wound through a forest of black trees, their leaves shimmering like polished onyx. The air grew warmer, thick with the scent of spice and stone. Eleanor's senses were assaulted by the strangeness of Eryndor every sound. Every texture felt alive, as if the land itself watched her. Kael walked beside her, silent but vigilant, his presence both a comfort and a reminder of his secrets. She wanted to trust him, to lean into the warmth of his hand, but doubt gnawed at her. What else is he hiding? They emerged into a vast courtyard dominated by a citadel of obsidian, its spires clawing at the sky like the fingers of a god. The Court of Obsidian. Its walls shimmered with veins of silver light, and Eleanor felt a pull in her chest, as if the structure recognized her. Cypher led them through towering gates, and the air inside was cool, heavy with the weight of ancient power. The hall was vast, its ceiling lost in shadow, its floor a mosaic of black and gold that seemed to shift underfoot. At its center sat a crescent of thrones, each occupied by a figure cloaked in darkness, their faces obscured by hoods. The Black Kings. Eleanor's breath caught as their collective gaze turned to her. It was like standing before a storm, each king radiating a presence that pressed against her mind. One spoke, a voice like grinding stone. "Eleanor Voss, blood of the lost line. Your awakening has stirred Eryndor. Why have you come?" Her mouth went dry. She glanced at Kael, but his expression was unreadable, his eyes fixed on the kings. "I didn't choose to come," she said, her voice echoing in the vast hall. "Kael brought me. He says I'm tied to this place, but no one's told me why." A murmur rippled through the kings, and one leaned forward, his hood slipping to reveal a face carved from ebony, eyes like twin moons. "Your parents did not tell you," he said. "Not a question, but a statement. They hid you from us, from your birthright." "My parents," Eleanor's voice trembled, anger and grief surging. "They died in a car accident. What do you know about them?" The king's eyes narrowed. "No accident, child. They were betrayed. Their blood, like yours, carried the light. Light draws shadows." Her knees weakened, and she gripped Kael's arm to steady herself. Betrayed. The word clawed at her, reopening wounds she'd spent years sealing. "Who betrayed them?" she demanded, her voice breaking. "Tell me." The kings exchanged glances, their silence heavy. Another spoke, her voice softer but no less commanding. "The truth is a blade, Eleanor. It cuts both ways. Your parents were of Eryndor rebels who sought to break our rule. Their deaths were a consequence of their defiance." Eleanor's vision blurred with tears, her chest tight with rage and sorrow. "You're lying," she whispered, but doubt crept in. She turned to Kael, searching his face. "Is it true? Were you part of this?" Kael's jaw clenched, his eyes flickering with something like pain. "I swore to protect you, Eleanor." "That's all you need to know for now." "For now," she snapped, pulling her hand from his. "You keep saying that, but I'm done with half-truths," her voice echoed, drawing the king's attention. She felt their scrutiny like a weight, but she stood taller, fueled by anger. "If I'm so important, tell me what I am. What's this light-bearer nonsense?" The first king rose, his presence filling the hall. "You are the last of the Luminari, a bloodline born to wield the light of Eryndor, a power that can create or destroy. Your awakening has drawn the Void's attention and others who covet your strength. You are no longer safe, not here, not in your world." Eleanor's mind spun. Power, the Void. She remembered the burst of light from her hands, the wraiths dissolving at her touch. It was real, undeniable, but it felt like a violation, like something foreign stitched into her soul. "And what do you want from me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The king's eyes gleamed, to guide you, to shape you, or if you resist, to contain you. The threat hung in the air, chilling her blood. Kael stepped closer, his voice low but firm. "She's not yours to control. The vow binds me to her, not to you." A tense silence followed, broken by Sifr's soft laugh from the shadows. "Such loyalty, guardian, but vows can break. And hers is a power even you cannot shield forever." Eleanor's heart raced, caught between fear and defiance. She looked at Kael, his face a mask of resolve, but beneath it, she saw crack's guilt, fear, something unspoken. The king's words echoed in her mind. Betrayed defiance, Lightbearer, her parents' deaths, Kael's secrets, this strange world, it was all connected, and she was the thread tying it together. But how? Why? The female king rose, her voice cutting through the tension. "You will face the trial of light, Eleanor Voss. It will awaken your true strength or consume you. Till then, rest, reflect. The court watches." Cypher gestured to a side chamber, and Kael led her away, his hand on her back, a silent promise of protection. But as they left the hall, Eleanor felt the king's eyes on her, their power pressing against her like a tide. In the quiet of the chamber, she turned to Kael, her voice raw. "You knew about my parents, didn't you, about all of this?" He looked away, his silence louder than any confession. "Eleanor, I don't," she cut him off, her chest aching. "Not yet, but you will tell me, Kael, everything." She sank onto a stone bench, the weight of Eryndor pressing down on her. The room was lit by glowing orbs, their light casting shadows that danced like ghosts. She felt the pull of this world, its beauty and danger, and the terrifying truth that she was part of it. As Kael stood guard at the door, a faint tremor shook the chamber, and a whisper slithered through the air. "Lightbearer, beware the one who binds you." Eleanor's eyes snapped to Kael, her heart lurching. Was it a warning about him, or something else? The chamber was a cocoon of shadows, its walls carved with runes that pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat trapped in stone. Eleanor sat on the cold bench, her hands trembling as she tried to process the whirlwind of revelations. The Black Kings, her parents' betrayal, the cryptic title of Lightbearer, it was too much, a tidal wave threatening to drown her. The whisper she'd heard lingered in her mind. Beware the one who binds you. Was it Kael, Kings, or something else entirely? Her chest tightened, a mix of fear and defiance clawing at her insides. She was no pawn, no matter what this strange world demanded. Kael stood by the door, his silhouette rigid against the glow of the orbs. His silence was a wall, and it infuriated her. She wanted to scream at him, to demand the truth about her parents, about his role in their deaths. But the weight of Eryndor's air pressed against her, heavy with expectation. She felt it in her bones, a pull, a spark, something alive within her that hadn't been there before. The memory of the light bursting from her hands on the cliff haunted her, both a thrill and a violation. What was she becoming? The door opened, and Cypher entered, their golden eyes glinting with an unreadable intent. "The kings request your presence," they said, their voice smooth as silk, but sharp as a blade. "The trial of light awaits." Eleanor's stomach churned. "Trial?" she asked, rising to her feet. "What does that mean?" Cypher's smile was enigmatic, almost predatory. "A ritual to awaken your power fully, to prove you're the Lightbearer or to break you." They tilted their heads, studying her. "It's not all survive it." Kael stepped forward, his voice low and dangerous. "She's not ready, Cypher. The awakening on the cliff was too soon. You know the risks." Cypher's gaze flicked to him, amusement curling their lips. "And you, Guardian, know the cost of defiance. The king's will is not a suggestion." They turned to Eleanor, their voice softening, almost coaxing. "Come, Eleanor, embrace what you are, or do you fear it?" The challenge stung, igniting a fire in her chest. Fear. She'd spent years burying it, hiding behind wealth and control to mask the emptiness left by her parents' death. She wouldn't let this world or these kings see her tremble. "I'm not afraid," she said, her voice steady despite the lie. "Lead the way." Kael's hand grazed her arm, a silent plea. But she pulled away, her eyes hard. "Don't," she whispered. "You don't get to protect me and keep secrets at the same time." His face tightened, a flicker of pain crossing his features. But he said nothing as they followed Cypher through the labyrinthine halls of the citadel. The ritual chamber was a cavern of black crystal, its walls reflecting Eleanor's face in distorted fragments, each one a stranger. At its center stood a circular dais, etched with symbols that glowed with a sickly green light. The Black Kings sat in a semicircle, their hooded forms radiating a power that made her skin crawl. One of them, the ebony-faced king with moon-like eyes, gestured to the dais. "Step forward, Eleanor Voss. The trial begins." Her heart pounded, but she climbed the dais, her chin high. The air grew thick, charged with an energy that buzzed against her skin. She felt exposed, raw, as if the kings could see every doubt, every fear she'd ever buried. The female king spoke, her voice a velvet blade. "The light within you is raw, untamed. This ritual will forge it or burn it away. Surrender to it, or it will consume you." Eleanor's breath hitched. "Surrender how?" she asked, her voice trembling despite her resolve. The king's eyes gleamed. "Open your heart. Let the light rise." Before she could ask more, the dais flared, and pain seared through her. It was like fire in her veins, a white-hot agony that tore a scream from her throat. Her vision fractured, and images flooded her mind, her parents, laughing in a garden she didn't recognize, a blade flashing in the dark. Their faces twisted in fear as shadows closed in. The memories weren't hers, yet they felt as real as her own heartbeat. She saw her mother's eyes, green like hers, pleading, "Protect her, Kael." And then darkness. Eleanor gasped, her knees buckling, but she stayed upright, gripping the edge of the dais. The pain ebbed, replaced by a warmth that pulsed in her core, stronger now, alive. She felt it her power, a living thing, both beautiful and terrifying. Her hands glowed faintly, the light casting shadows that danced like specters. It was powerful, but it felt like a violation, as if something foreign had been stitched into her soul. The kings murmured, their voices a low hum of approval. But one voice cut through, sharp and commanding. "Impressive," said a new figure, stepping from the shadows. He was tall, with skin like polished bronze, and eyes that burned with ambition. "I am Lord Vareth, third of the Black Kings. You are more than we expected, Eleanor Voss." Kael tensed, his hand on his blade. "Vareth," he said, his tone a warning. "She's not your concern." Vareth's smile was sharp, predatory. "Oh, but she is." "A light bearer is everyone's concern." He stepped closer to Eleanor, his presence magnetic, almost intoxicating. "The kings will bind you to their will, Eleanor, but I see more in you. Queen, perhaps, not a pawn. Join me, and I'll show you what your power can truly do." Eleanor's heart raced, Vareth's words stirring something dangerous in her hunger for control, for answers. She glanced at Kael, whose eyes burned with a mix of fear and possessiveness. The air between them crackled, a tension that was both electric and suffocating. She felt drawn to him, to the man who'd protected her, but his secrets loomed like a chasm. Vareth, on the other hand, offered clarity, power, a path that didn't require trust in a man who'd lied to her. "I don't need your promises," she said to Vareth, her voice firm despite the chaos in her mind. "I'll find my own way." Vareth's smile didn't falter. Old words. "But power has a price, and you've only begun to pay it." He stepped back, bowing slightly, but his eyes never left hers, promising more than words could convey. The kings dismissed them, and Kael led her to a new chamber, his silence heavy. The ritual had changed her. She felt it in the way her skin tingled, the way the air seemed to hum in her presence. But it had also left her raw, vulnerable, her emotions a tangled mess of anger, grief, and something else, a pull toward Kael that she couldn't ignore, no matter how much she wanted to. In the quiet of the chamber, Kael finally spoke, his voice low, almost broken. "Eleanor, I know you're angry. You have every right to be. But what I've done, what I'm doing, it's to keep you alive." She turned to him, her eyes blazing. "Live? For what, Kael? To be their weapon? To carry some power I didn't ask for?" She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "You were there, weren't you, when my parents died? I saw it in the ritual. Tell me the truth." His face crumpled, just for a moment, before the mask returned. "I can't," he said, his voice raw. "Not yet. I swear everything I've done is for you." The words hit her like a blow, stirring a storm of emotions and longing, betrayal. She wanted to hate him, to push him away, but his presence was a tether, grounding her in this alien world. She reached out, her fingers brushing his, and the contact sent a jolt through her, a spark that felt like it could ignite or destroy them both. "No more secrets," she said, her voice trembling. "Promise me." He nodded, his eyes locked on hers, but before he could speak, a shadow moved outside the chamber, a figure cloaked in darkness, watching. Eleanor's heart lurched, the whisper from before echoing in her mind. "Beware the one who binds you." Was it Kael, Vareth, or someone else entirely? The air in the chamber was thick, heavy with the scent of ancient stone and the faint, lingering hum of Eleanor's awakened power. Her fingers still tingled from brushing Kael's, a fleeting touch that left her heart racing with a mix of longing and distrust. She stood by the narrow window, the obsidian spires of Eryndor piercing the sky outside. Their jagged edges, a stark reminder of how far she was from the world she knew. The shadow she'd glimpsed outside the chamber was gone, but its presence lingered in her mind, a silent warning that coiled around the whispered words. "Beware the one who binds you." Her gaze flicked to Kael, who stood by the door, his posture rigid, his eyes avoiding hers. The weight of his secrets pressed against her, a barrier she couldn't breach. "Kael," she said, her voice sharp enough to cut through the silence. "You promised no more secrets. Start talking." He turned to her, his obsidian eyes shadowed with something raw guilt, perhaps, or sorrow. For a moment, he looked like a man carrying centuries of burdens, not the stoic guardian she'd known in London. Eleanor, he began, his voice low. It's not that simple. The truth. It's a chain. Once you know it, you can't break free. She crossed her arms, her anger flaring. Don't give me metaphors. I saw my parents in that ritual. I heard my mother's voice, begging you to protect me. You were there when they died? Tell me what happened, or I swear I'll walk out and find Vareth. He's at least offering answers. Kael's jaw tightened at Vareth's name, a flicker of something dangerous crossing his face. Maybe, or fear. Vareth wants to use you, he said, stepping closer. He sees your power as a weapon, nothing more. Don't trust him. She shot back, her voice trembling with the weight of her grief. You've lied to me for years, Kael. You were my servitor, so I thought. Now I'm here, in this insane world, with powers I don't understand, and you're still hiding things. Give me a reason to believe you. He hesitated, his hands clenching at his sides. The air between them crackled, charged with unspoken emotions. She felt it again, that pull toward him, a magnetic force that made her want to step closer, to let his warmth anchor her. But she held her ground, her heart a battlefield of trust and betrayal. Finally he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. I made a vow, Eleanor, long before you were born, to your bloodline, to the Luminar, to protect you no matter the cost. His eyes met hers, and she saw pain there, raw and unguarded. I've carried it for centuries, through wars, through betrayals. I've lost everything to keep that oath. Centuries? Oh, her breath caught, the words sinking like a stone. What are you, Kael? Looked away, his gaze fixed on the glowing orbs that lit the chamber. I'm bound to Eryndor, cursed, some would say. I don't age, not as you do. The vow ties me to your line, to the light you carry. I was there when your ancestors fought the Black Kings. When your parents... His voice broke and he swallowed hard. They were my friends, Eleanor. I failed them. Her heart lurched, a mix of shock and sorrow. Failed them how? She asked, her voice softer now, though anger still simmered beneath. Were you part of their betrayal? He flinched as if her words were a blade. No, he said, his voice raw. But I couldn't save them. It was too late. He stepped closer, his presence overwhelming, his scent earth and iron filling her senses. I won't fail you, Eleanor. I swear it. The intensity in his eyes made her chest tighten, a dangerous warmth spreading through her. She wanted to believe him, to let his words soothe the ache in her heart, but the ritual's visions haunted her parents' fear, the shadows closing in. She stepped back, needing distance. Swearing isn't enough, she said. I need the truth. All of it. Before he could respond, a soft chime echoed through the chamber, and Cypher appeared, their golden eyes gleaming with purpose. The kings grant you a moment of respite, they said, their voice dripping with mock courtesy. Follow me to the Library of Veils. There you may find answers, Lightbearer. Eleanor glanced at Kael, her instincts torn. The library sounded like a chance to uncover the truth without relying on his half-answers. Fine, she said, brushing past him. But this conversation isn't over. The Library of Veils was a cavernous hall, its walls lined with shelves that stretched into darkness, each tome glowing faintly with runes. The air smelled of dust and secrets, and Eleanor felt a strange pull as if the books themselves recognized her. Cypher led her to a pedestal where a single volume lay open, its pages shimmering like liquid starlight. The Chronicle of the Luminari, Cypher said. Your bloodline's history. Read if you dare.
Eleanor's fingers
trembled as she touched the pages. The text shifted, forming words in a language she shouldn't have understood, but did. Images flooded her mind, her ancestors, wielding light against shadow, defying the Black Kings. They were rebels, heroes, but also hunted, betrayed by those they trusted. She saw her parents, young and fierce, standing with Kael in a battle against wraiths. He fought like a storm, his blade a blur, but there was pain in his eyes even then. They were rebels, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. They fought the kings, and you were with them. Kael nodded, his expression heavy. They wanted to free Eryndor from the king's rule. They believed your light could change everything. But they were betrayed. Not by me, Eleanor, but by someone close. Who? she demanded, her heart pounding. The book's pages turned on their own, revealing a name. Vareth, her breath caught. Vareth betrayed them. Kael's silence was answer enough, but before she could press him, a shadow moved in the library's depths, a cloaked figure, swift and silent. Kael's blade was out in an instant, his body shielding her. "Show yourself," he barked. The figure stepped into the light, revealing a masked face, eyes glinting like steel. "The Lightbearer is not safe here," they hissed, their voice distorted. "The kings will bind her, or the void will claim her." They hurled a dagger, not at Eleanor, but at Kael, who deflected it with a flash of his blade. The figure vanished into the shadows, leaving only a chill in the air. Eleanor's heart raced, her mind spinning. "Who was that?" she demanded, her voice shaking. "And why do they keep calling me Lightbearer?" Kael sheathed his blade, his expression grim. "An assassin, likely sent by those who fear your power. The Lightbearer is a prophecy, Eleanor. A figure destined to either save Eryndor or destroy it. That's why the kings want you, and why others want you dead." Her knees weakened, the weight of it all crashing down. She was no savior, no destroyer, just a woman grieving her parents, lost in a world she didn't understand. But the power in her veins, the light that had burned the wraiths, was real, and it terrified her. Kael's hand found hers, his touch grounding her. "I won't let them hurt you," he said, his voice fierce. "But you need to trust me, even if you hate me for what I haven't told you." She looked into his eyes, seeing the storm of emotions, their guilt, loyalty, something deeper that made her heart ache. She wanted to trust him, to let his strength anchor her, but the assassin's words echoed. "The kings will bind her." And then, like a blade to her heart, another truth surfaced from the book's pagisa, fleeting image of Kael centuries ago, standing over a fallen figure, his blade bloodied. A black king's blade. "You killed for them," she whispered, pulling her hand away. "The kings, you served them." Kael's face paled, his silence a confession. "Eleanor, I know," she cut him off, her voice breaking. "Don't. Just don't." She turned away, her heart fracturing under the weight of betrayal. The library's shadows seemed to close in, and she felt the eyes of Eryndor watching, waiting for her to break. Eleanor's heart pounded like a war drum, each beat echoing the betrayal she felt. The image from the Chronicle of the Luminari burned in her mind. Kael, his blade dripping with blood, standing over a fallen figure in service to the Black Kings. Her stomach churned, a mix of anger and heartbreak twisting like a knife. She stood in the Library of Veils, the air thick with the musty scent of ancient tomes and the faint hum of her own power, now a constant pulse in her veins. Kael's presence behind her was a weight, both comforting and suffocating. She wanted to scream at him, to demand why he'd hidden his past. But the assassin's attack and the whispered warning "the kings will bind her" kept her silent, her thoughts a tangled storm. "Eleanor," Kael said, his voice low, almost pleading. "Let me explain." She spun to face him, her green eyes blazing. That you lied to me, even after I begged for the truth? Her voice cracked, the raw edge of her pain slicing through the air. "I trusted you, Kael. I followed you into this world, and you're still playing me like a pawn." His face tightened, a flicker of anguish crossing his features. "I never wanted to hurt you," he said, stepping closer. His center than iron filled her senses, stirring that dangerous pull she couldn't shake. "What I did to survive. To protect your bloodline, ain't the king's." "Stop," she snapped, her hands trembling. "I don't want excuses. I want to know who you are, what you've done." She took a step back, her back brushing against a shelf, the glowing runes casting eerie shadows across her face. And I want to know why my parents died. Before Kael could answer, the library's air shifted, a cold draft carrying the scent of decay. Cypher appeared, their golden eyes glinting with urgency. The kings have spoken, they said, their voice sharp. You are to retrieve the heart of the abyss, Lightbearer. It is the key to mastering your power and to proving your worth. Eleanor's breath caught. The heart of what? She asked, her voice laced with defiance. She was tired of cryptic demands, of being pulled along like a puppet. Cypher's smile was thin, almost cruel, a relic hidden in the abyss of forbidden region, where even the kings tread lightly. It will bind your light, make it whole, or it will break you. Their gaze flicked to Kael, a challenge in their eyes. Your guardian will accompany you, unless of course you doubt his loyalty. Eleanor's heart lurched, Cypher's words striking at her raw wounds. She glanced at Kael, his expression unreadable but his eyes burning with something fierce protectiveness, or perhaps guilt. I don't need him, she said, though the words felt hollow. But I'll go. I want answers, not your games. Cypher's laugh was soft, like wind through dead leaves. Brave words. We shall see. They vanished into the shadows, leaving Eleanor and Kael alone with the weight of the task. The journey to the abyss was a descent into madness. The path wound through a canyon of jagged black stone, the air growing colder, heavier, as if it carried the weight of forgotten sins. The sky above was a swirling vortex of violet and ash, and the ground pulsed with a rhythm that matched the spark in Eleanor's chest. She felt her power stirring, restless, like a beast clawing to be free. Kael walked beside her, his blade at the ready, his silence a heavy presence. She wanted to hate him, to push him away, but his nearness was a tether, grounding her in this alien place. The canyon opened into a vast chasm, the abyss itself a void where light seemed to drown. The air here was alive, whispering with voices that clawed at Eleanor's mind. Lightbearer, you are ours. She shivered, her skin prickling as shadows moved in the distance. Not wraiths, but something older, hungrier. Kael's hand grazed her arm, and she flinched, the memory of his bloodied blade flashing in her mind. Don't touch me, she said, her voice sharp but trembling. Not until you tell me the truth. He stopped, his eyes locking onto hers. Eleanor, I was bound to the kings before I knew your parents. I did things I'm not proud of, things I had no choice in. But when I met your mother and father, I saw a chance to be more than their weapon. It gave me purpose. His voice broke, raw with emotion. Couldn't save them, but I'll die before I let that happen to you. His words hit her like a wave, stirring a storm of emotions, grief, longing, anger. She wanted to believe him, to let his sincerity wash away her doubts. But the image of his blade, his past loomed large. He killed for them, she whispered. How do I know you won't betray me too? Before he could answer, the shadows surged, coalescing into a creature of nightmare claws like obsidian, eyes like voids. Kael pushed her behind him, his blade flashing as he met the beast head-on. The fight was brutal, a dance of steel and shadow. And Eleanor's heart raced as she watched him move, fierce, relentless, a warrior forged by centuries. Her power flared unbidden, light bursting from her hands, searing the creature's flank. It screamed, a sound that tore at her soul and dissolved into ash. Kael turned to her, his chest heaving, blood trickling from a gash on his arm. You're getting stronger, he said, a hint of awe in his voice. But you need to control it, or it'll consume you. She nodded, her breath ragged, the light fading from her hands. The abyss felt alive, its whispers growing louder, more insistent. You are ours. She pushed them away, focusing on Kael's face, his eyes searching hers. For a moment, the world narrowed to just them, the air charged with unspoken words. She stepped closer, her fingers brushing his wounded arm, and the contact sent a jolt through her, a spark that felt like it could ignite the world. I don't know if I can trust you, she whispered, her voice raw, but I don't want to do this alone. His hand covered hers, his touch warm, grounding. You're not alone, he said, his voice low, intimate. You never will be. The moment shattered as the ground trembled. A pulse of energy drawing their eyes to the heart of the abyss, a glowing orb. The heart of the abyss floating above a stone altar, Its light was both beautiful and terrible, promising power and pain. Eleanor felt it call to her, a siren song that made her heart ache with want. She stepped toward it, Kael at her side, but as she reached out, a vision slammed into her. Kael, standing over her parents' bodies, his blade raised, his face twisted with grief. "I had no choice," he said in the vision, his voice breaking. Eleanor stumbled, her hand falling. "No," she gasped, turning to him, her eyes wide with horror. "You were there. You let them die." Kael's face paled, his eyes pleading. "Eleanor, it wasn't like that." But she couldn't hear him. His betrayal cut too deep, a wound that bled trust. She turned and ran deeper into the abyss, the whispers growing louder, promising answers, promising power. The heart pulsed behind her, and Kael's voice called her name, but she didn't stop. The shadows closed in, and she felt the abyss swallow her whole, her heart a fractured thing, torn between love and betrayal. The abyss swallowed Eleanor, its shadows wrapping around her like a lover's embrace, cold and suffocating. Her footsteps echoed in the dark, each one a rebellion against the pain tearing through her heart. The vision of Kael standing over her parents' bodies, his blade raised, burned in her mind, a wound that bled trust and hope. She'd run from him, from his half-truths and haunted eyes, into the depths of this forbidden place where the air hummed with whispers light-bearer, "You are ours." Her power surged in her chest, a wild, untamed thing that both thrilled and terrified her. She was alone, but for the first time, she felt the weight of her own strength, a spark that could either save her or burn her to ash. The ground beneath her was slick, pulsing with a faint glow, that cast eerie reflections on the jagged walls. The heart of the abyss lay behind her, its siren call still tugging at her soul, but she pressed forward, driven by a need for answers, for control. The whispers grew louder, weaving through her thoughts like threads of a spell. "You are more than they know. Claim your power. Break their chains." She shook her head, trying to silence them, but they clawed at her, promising truths Kael had hidden. A flicker of movement caught her eye, and she froze. The shadows parted, revealing a figure tall, cloaked with eyes that burned like embers. Not Kael, not Cypher, but someone new, their presence both commanding and dangerous. "Eleanor Voss," the figure said, their voice smooth, laced with a charisma that made her skin prickle. "You run from your protector, yet you seek the truth. Brave, but foolish." She squared her shoulders, her hands glowing faintly with unbidden light. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice steady, despite the fear coiling in her gut. "And why does everyone in this place speak in riddles?" The figure stepped closer, revealing the bronze-skinned face of Lord Vareth, the Black King who'd offered her an alliance in the Court of Obsidian. His smile was sharp, predatory, but his eyes held a warmth that disarmed her, a promise of understanding. "No riddles, Eleanor. Only truths the others fear to speak." He gestured to the abyss around them, its shadows writhing like living things. "You feel it, don't you? The power in your veins. The light that could reshape Eryndor, as the kings want to bind it. I want to set it free." Her heart raced, Varys' words striking a chord. She was tired of being a pawn of Kael's secrets and the king's cryptic threats. "Why should I trust you?" she asked, her voice sharp. "The Chronicle said you betrayed my parents." Varys' smile faltered, a flicker of something regret, crossing his face. "The Chronicle lies, as all histories do, written by victors. Your parents were my allies, Eleanor. They fought for a free Eryndor, a world where the Lightbearer could rule, not serve. The kings crushed them, and I—" He paused, his eyes darkening. "I survived, but I carry their dream. Join me, and we can finish what they started." Words were a siren song, tempting her with the one thing she craved: purpose. She saw her parents' faces in her mind, their laughter, their love, and the pain of their loss surged anew. But the vision of Kael, his blade raised, lingered too, a shadow on her trust. "And Kael?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "What was his role?" Barrett's eyes narrowed, a spark of disdain flaring. "Kael is a dog on the king's leash. Served them once, killed for them. Claims to protect you, but his loyalty is divided. Can you trust a man who hides his past?" Her chest tightened, Varys' words echoing her own doubts. She wanted to deny them, to cling to the warmth she'd felt in Kael's touch, the fierce protectiveness in his eyes. But the vision, the blood on his blade, was a wound she couldn't ignore. "What do you want from me?" she asked, her voice raw. Vareth stepped closer, his presence magnetic, his voice low and intimate. "To make you a queen, Eleanor. Not a weapon, not a pawn. It's the heart of the abyss can bind your power, make you unstoppable. With me, you can overthrow the kings, avenge your parents, and claim your birthright." The offer hung in the air, intoxicating, dangerous. She felt the pull of the heart behind her, its glow a beacon in the dark. Her power surged, responding to Varys's words, and for a moment she saw herself as he did, powerful, untamed, a force to reshape worlds. But the whispers of the abyss grew louder, warning, "He binds you too." She stepped back, her heart a battlefield. "I need time," she said, her voice firm. "I'm not your puppet either." Vareth's smile returned, undeterred. "Time is a luxury Eryndor does not offer. Choose soon, Lightbearer, or the choice will be made for you." He vanished into the shadows, leaving her alone with the weight of his words. Before she could process it, a shout echoed through the abyssal's voice, raw with desperation. "Eleanor." He appeared through the mist, his blade drawn, his face etched with fear. "You can't run from this, from me." His eyes searched hers, and she saw the storm within him. Guilt, love, a need to protect that bordered on obsession. "Don't," she said, her voice breaking as she backed away. "You don't get to chase me after lying for years." Her hands glowed, the light flaring with her anger. "I saw you, Kael. With my parents. You let them die?" His face crumpled, and for the first time she saw him break, not the stoic guardian, not the warrior, but a man carrying centuries of pain. "I didn't let them die," he said, his voice raw. "I was forced to choose the kings. They had you, Eleanor, child hidden away. They would have killed you if I hadn't." He stopped, his breath ragged. "I made a deal. Their lives for yours. I've hated myself every day since." The confession hit her like a blow, stealing her breath. Her parents' deaths, his choice, it was too much. A truth that shattered her. Tears stung her eyes, and she hated how vulnerable she felt, how much she still wanted to reach for him despite the pain. "You should have told me," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You should have trusted me." "I wanted to protect you," he said, stepping closer, his hand outstretched. "I still do." The abyss trembled, the whispers rising to a scream, as shadows surged around them. Kael pulled her close, his blade flashing as he fought off the encroaching darkness. Her power flared, light bursting from her hands, driving the shadows back. They fought together, a seamless dance of light and steel, and for a moment she felt the bond between them raw. Undeniable, a tether that defied her anger. As the shadows retreated, they reached the altar where the heart of the abyss glowed, its light pulsing in time with her heartbeat. Kael's hand found hers, his touch electric, grounding. "You don't have to do this alone," he said, his voice soft but fierce. "But you have to choose, Eleanor. Die. The heart will bind your power, but it's a risk. It could destroy you." She looked into his eyes, seeing the man who'd saved her, betrayed her, loved her in a way she couldn't yet name. Varys' offer echoed in her mind. A queen, not a pawn. But the whispers of the abyss warned her. No one is what they seem. Her heart tore between vengeance and forgiveness, power and trust. She reached for the heart, her fingers trembling, and a shadow lunged from the dark, a blade aimed at her heart. Kael shoved her aside, taking the blow, and blood bloomed across his chest as he fell. His eyes locked on hers, a silent plea. "Live." Eleanor's scream tore through the abyss, raw and primal, as Kael crumpled to the ground, blood pooling beneath him like ink. The shadow that struck him dissolved into mist, its blade glinting briefly before vanishing. Her heart seized, a chaotic storm of fear and rage flooding her senses. The heart of the abyss pulsed on the altar before her, its light a siren's call. But all she could see was Kaela's face, pale, his obsidian eyes flickering with pain, yet still fixed on her with a fierce, unspoken vow. "Live? No," she cried, dropping to her knees beside him. Her hands trembled as she pressed them against the wound on his chest, blood warm and slick beneath her fingers. The air of the abyss was thick, suffocating, its whispers now a deafening roar. Claim the heart. Become whole. But she ignored them, her focus narrowing to Kael's ragged breathing, the faint pulse beneath her hands. Stay with me, she whispered, her voice breaking. You don't get to die on me, not after everything. His hand weakly grasped hers, his touch grounding despite the blood. Eleanor, he rasped, his voice barely audible. The heart. You need it. Don't let them win. His eyes fluttered, and for a moment, she saw the man beneath the guardian, the one who'd carried her parents' deaths, who'd chosen her life over theirs, who'd fought for her, even when she pushed him away. Tears burned her eyes, but anger surged stronger, a fire fueled by betrayal and love intertwined. She wouldn't lose him, not like this. Her power flared, unbidden, light spilling from her hands, seeping into his wound. It wasn't healing she didn't know how, but it slowed the bleeding, a desperate act born of instinct. I'm not done with you, she said, her voice fierce. You owe me answers. A faint smile curved his lips, but before he could speak, the abyss trembled, the ground cracking beneath them. The heart's glow intensified, its light casting shadows that writhed like living things. Eleanor's head snapped up as a new presence emerged, Lord Vareth, his bronze skin gleaming, his eyes burning with ambition. Impressive, he said, his voice smooth but laced with menace. Your power grows, Light-Bearer, but you waste it on a broken man. Eleanor rose, her hands still glowing, her body trembling with rage. Stay back, she warned, her voice a low growl. I don't trust you any more than I trust the kings. Varys' smile was sharp, undeterred. You should. I've seen what the kings plan for you, a weapon to wield against the void, a tool to secure their rule. But you're more than that, Eleanor. You're the last Luminari, heir to a throne, they fear. He stepped closer, his presence magnetic, his words weaving a spell. Claim the heart, join me, and we can shatter their crown. Together, we'll rule Eryndor. Her heart pounded, Vareth's offer echoing the hunger in her soul for vengeance. For control, for a purpose to fill the void left by her parents' deaths. But Kael's blood on her hands anchored her, a reminder of the cost of trust. She glanced at him, his eyes still locked on her, pleading silently. Don't let them win. The whispers of the abyss surged. He binds you. They all do. I don't need you to rule, she said to Vareth, her voice steady, despite the chaos within. And I'm done being anyone's pawn. She turned to the heart, its light pulsing in time with her heartbeat. She felt its power, a promise of strength, but also a warning of destruction. Her fingers hovered over it, the air crackling with energy. Before she could touch it, a deafening roar shook the abyss, and the shadows coalesced into a massive forma creature of void and malice, its eyes like twin black holes. The king's voices echoed in her mind, a chorus of command. Take the heart, Light-Bearer. Stop the void. She realized then the kings had sent her here, not just to bind her power, but to unleash her against a threat they feared. The creature lunged and Eleanor acted on instinct, her light flaring brighter than ever. A beam of radiance shot from her hands, searing the creature's flank, but it barely faltered, its claws slashing toward her. Kael staggered to his feet, his blade flashing as he threw himself between her and the beast. Eleanor, no, he shouted, his voice raw with desperation. She reached for the heart, her fingers closing around its pulsing warmth. Pain seared through her, 1,000 needles piercing her soul, and visions flooded her mind, her parents fighting alongside Kael. A betrayal not by Vareth, but by another king cloaked in shadow. Kael forced to his knees, swearing to save her life. The truth hit her like a wave. Kael hadn't let her parents die willingly. He'd been bound, manipulated, just as she was now. The heart's power surged through her, amplifying her light until it burned like a star. She turned on the creature, her hands blazing, and unleashed a torrent of light that shattered it into fragments of shadow. The abyss quaked, the altar cracking, and Varys' eyes widened, a mix of awe and fear. You're more than they know, he whispered, before vanishing into the dark. Eleanor collapsed, the heart still clutched in her hands, its light now dim. Kael caught her, his bloodied arm trembling but strong. You did it, he said, his voice hoarse. You're alive. She looked into his eyes, seeing the truth he'd tried to shield her from, the pain of his choice, the weight of his vow. You didn't betray them, she whispered, her voice breaking. You saved me. His hand cupped her face, his touch electric, grounding. "Do it again," he said, his voice raw with emotion. Every time. The moment was shattered by a tremor, the abyss collapsing around them. The king's voices echoed again, colder now. "You have the heart, but you are not free." Eleanor's heart sank as she realized the truth. Her power was bound, but so was she, tied to the king's will. And then, a new voice, sharp and commanding. "The Lightbearer is a threat. She must be contained." Kael pulled her to her feet, his eyes fierce. "We need to move. Kings won't let you walk away from this." As they fled the collapsing abyss, Eleanor clutched the heart, its warmth a reminder of her power and her chains. Varys' words echoed. A queen, not a pawn. But the king's threat loomed larger, and Kael's past still haunted her. She felt the spark of her light, stronger now, but unstable, a fire that could consume her. And as they emerged into Eryndor's glowing valley, a shadow watched from the distance, its eyes glinting with betrayal. Eleanor stumbled out of the collapsing abyss. The heart of the abyss clutched tightly in her hands, its faint glow pulsing like a second heartbeat. The air of Eryndor hit her like a wave, thick with the scent of ozone and blooming nightshade. The glowing valley stretching before her under a sky fractured with violet and gold. Kael's arms steadied her, his bloodied form a stark reminder of his sacrifice, his eyes still burning with that fierce unspoken vow to protect her. Her chest ached, torn between the truth she'd glimpsed in the heart's vision scales forced betrayal. His choice to save her and the king's chilling command, she must be contained. The weight of her power, now amplified by the heart, thrummed in her veins, a wild, untamed force that felt both exhilarating and dangerous, like holding a storm in her hands. The valley was eerily quiet, the obsidian spires casting long shadows that seemed to watch her every move. Eleanor's breath came in short gasps, her mind reeling from the revelations. The kings wanted her as a weapon. Varys wanted her as a queen, and Kael. Kael wanted her safe, but at what cost? The shadow she'd glimpsed at the edge of the valley lingered in her mind, a silent threat that whispered of betrayal. "Beware the one who binds you." The words echoed, a warning she could no longer ignore. "We can't stay here," Kael said, his voice hoarse but urgent. His hand gripped her arm, his touch both grounding and possessive, stirring that dangerous pull she felt toward him. The kings felt the heart's power. "They'll come for you." Eleanor pulled away, her eyes flashing. "And what then, Kael?" "I run. I hide. I'm done being their pawn." Her voice trembled, but her resolve was iron. The heart's warmth pulsed in her hands, and she felt its power surge, her skin glowing faintly. "You saw what I did in there? I destroyed that creature. I'm not helpless anymore." Kael's face softened, a mix of pride and fear in his eyes. "You're not helpless, Eleanor. You never were. But your power, it's unstable. The heart binds it, but it's also a beacon. The kings, the void, others, they'll hunt you for it." He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Let me help you, please." Her heart twisted, caught between trust and doubt. She wanted to believe him, to lean into the warmth of his presence. But the visions of his past, his blade, his guilt still haunted her. "You swore to protect me," she said, her voice raw. "But you can't protect me from the truth. What do the kings want? What's the prophecy about the Lightbearer?" Before he could answer, a low hum filled the air, and the valley shuddered. Cypher appeared, their golden eyes glinting with a mix of amusement and menace. "The kings grow impatient," they said, their voice smooth as silk. "You hold the heart, Lightbearer, but your power is a flame without a leash. They demand you face the trial of dominion to prove you can wield it, or to break you before you break Eryndor." Laeno's grip on the heart tightened, its pulse sinking with her own. "Another trial," she snapped, her anger flaring. "I've already proven myself. I'm not their toy." Cypher's smile was sharp, almost pitying. "You are the Lightbearer, child. The prophecy says you will either save Eryndor or burn it to ash. The kings will not risk the latter." Their eyes flicked to Kael, a challenge in their gaze. "And your guardian knows the cost of defiance, don't you, Kael?" Kael's jaw clenched, but he said nothing, his silence a weight that pressed against Eleanor's heart. She turned to him, her voice low. "What aren't you telling me?" He hesitated, his eyes searching hers, but before he could speak, a new voice cut through the air, rich, commanding, and laced with danger. She deserves the truth, Guardian. Lord Vareth stepped from the shadows, his bronze skin gleaming under the valley's eerie light. Tell her, or I will. Eleanor's heart raced, Vareth's presence stirring that same magnetic pull, his offer of power and vengeance echoing in her mind. She glanced between the two men, the air crackling with tension. Kael's hand twitched toward his blade, but he held back, his eyes locked on Vareth. Stay out of this, he growled. Hold. She's not your weapon. Vareth laughed, a sound that was both charming and chilling. And she's yours? You bind her with your guilt, your secrets. Tell her the prophecy, Kael. Tell her what the kings fear. Eleanor's patience snapped. Enough, she shouted, her voice echoing across the valley. Light flared from her hands, the heart amplifying it into a blaze that made both men step back. I'm done with your games. Tell me the prophecy, or I swear I'll burn this place down myself. Kael's face crumpled, and he spoke, his voice heavy with centuries of burden. The prophecy of the Lightbearer. It says you're the last of the Luminari, born to wield the light that can reshape worlds. You can save Eryndor, unite it under your rule, or destroy it, if your power consumes you. The kings want to control you, to use your light against the void. But if you defy them, if you choose your own path— He paused, his eyes pleading. You could become one of them. A black king. The words hit her like a physical blow, stealing her breath. A black king? The thought was both intoxicating and terrifying, a destiny she hadn't asked for. She looked at the heart in her hands, its glow now a steady pulse, and felt its power whispering, You are enough. But the king's threat loomed. She must be contained in Vareth's offer of rebellion, tugged at her anger, her need for vengeance. Vareth stepped closer, his voice low, persuasive. They fear you, Eleanor. They know you could overthrow them, claim their thrones. Join me, and we'll break their chains. Together, we'll make Eryndor ours. Kael's hand shot out, grabbing Vareth's arm. She's not yours to claim, he snarled, his voice raw with emotion. Eleanor, don't listen to him. He'll use you, just like they will. The valley trembled again, and a shadow moved in the distance. Not a wraith, but a figure cloaked in black, its eyes glinting with malice. Eleanor's heart lurched as she recognized the presence from the library, the assassin who'd warned her. The traitor, she whispered, her voice trembling. They're here. The figure stepped forward, revealing a face she hadn't expected, one of the Black Kings. The female with the velvet voice, her hood cast aside. You've gone too far, Lightbearer, she said, her voice cold. The heart is ours, and so are you. She raised a hand, and shadows surged, binding Eleanor's wrists with icy tendrils. Kael lunged, his blade flashing, but Vareth moved faster. His own power a blaze of crimson, light cutting through the shadows. Run, Eleanor, he shouted, his eyes fierce. Claim your choice. Her power flared, shattering the bindings, but the king's shadows were relentless, clawing at her light. She clutched the heart, its power surging, unstable, threatening to consume her. Kael fought beside her, his blade a blur, but the king's power was overwhelming, a tide of darkness that threatened to drown them both. Eleanor's mind raced, the prophecy's weight crushing her. Save Eryndor or destroy it, become a king or break them. Looked at Kael, his bloodied form fighting for her, and Vareth, his ambition a mirror to her own. The traitor king's eyes burned with hatred, and Eleanor realized the truth. Someone within the court had betrayed her parents. And now they wanted her power, her life. The heart pulsed, its light blinding, and she made her choice. She raised it high, her voice ringing out, I am no one's weapon. Light erupted, a supernova that shook the valley, driving back the shadows. The traitor king screamed, her form dissolving, but the other king's voices echoed, You cannot escape us. Eleanor collapsed, the heart's power draining her, her vision blurring. Kael caught her, his arms strong despite his wounds. You're not done, he whispered, his voice fierce. Not yet. But as darkness closed in, a new figure emerged from the shadows, its face hidden, its voice a hiss. The trial awaits, Lightbearer. Choose or be chosen. Eleanor's heart stopped as she realized the traitor was in T. The king Shidi Fotit was someone closer, someone watching all along. Eleanor's vision swam, the heart of the abyss still clutched in her trembling hands, its fading glow a mirror to the fire in her soul. The valley of Eryndor lay in chaos around her cracked, shattered spires, the air thick with the acrid scent of scorched stone and the lingering hum of her unleashed power. Kael held her upright, his bloodied arms steady, despite the wounds that marred his body. His eyes, dark and fierce, locked onto hers, a silent anchor in the storm of her emotions. The traitor king's defeat still echoed in her mind, but the new figure's words, choose or be chosen, clawed at her. A final warning that the true threat was closer than she'd feared. The valley pulsed with an unnatural silence, the Black King's presence a distant but oppressive weight. Eleanor's power surged erratically, the heart amplifying it into a force that felt like it could tear her apart. Her heart pounded. Caught between the prophecies promise save Eryndor or destroy Atand, the betrayal that had haunted her since the Library of Veils, beware the one who binds you. She looked at Kael, his face etched with pain and loyalty, and felt the ache of their bond, a tether forged in blood and secrets. Varith's offer lingered too, a siren call to rebellion, to a throne she could claim. But the shadowed figure's voice, that final hiss, pointed to a deeper truth. Someone close had orchestrated this, someone who'd watched her every move. Who was that? She demanded, her voice raw, her eyes scanning the valley for the cloaked figure. The one who spoke. They're the traitor, aren't they? Kael's jaw tightened, his gaze sweeping the shadows. I don't know, he admitted, his voice low, strained. But they're not one of the kings. Not anymore. He gripped her arm, his touch urgent. Eleanor, we need to get you to safety. The court will come for the heart, for you. Your power, it's too much for them to ignore now. She pulled away, her light flaring briefly, a spark of defiance. No more running, she said, her voice steady, despite the exhaustion weighing her down. I'm done being their weapon, Kael, or Varith's, or anyone's. The heart pulsed in her hands, its warmth both a comfort and a warning. I need to know who's pulling the strings, who betrayed my parents, who's betraying me now. Before Kael could respond, the air shimmered, and Cypher appeared, their golden eyes glinting with a mix of awe and calculation. Bold words, Lightbearer, they said, their voice smooth but edged with danger. But the trial of dominion awaits. The kings demand your final choice. Join them, wield your light as their blade, or face annihilation. Eleanor's heart raced, the prophecy's weight crushing her. Save or destroy, join or defy. She felt the heart's power surge, unstable, threatening to consume her. And if I refuse, she asked, her voice a challenge. What then? Cypher's smile was cold, predatory. Then Eryndor falls, and your world with it. The void stirs. Lightbearer. Only you can stop it or unleash it. The ground trembled, and shadows gathered at the valley's edge. Not wraiths, but something worse, a tide of darkness that pulsed with hunger. The void. Eleanor's breath caught, the heart's light flaring in response as if it recognized the threat. Kael stepped closer, his blade drawn, his eyes fierce. She's not alone, he said, his voice a growl. If the kings want her, they'll have to go through me. Cypher's laugh was soft, chilling, loyal to the end, Guardian. But even you cannot stop what comes. They vanished, leaving a ripple of unease in their wake. Eleanor's mind spun, the pieces falling into place. The traitor wasn't just a kingnit, was someone who'd manipulated everything, from her parents' deaths to her awakening. She closed her eyes, letting the heart's visions guide her. Images flashed her parents' final stand, a cloaked figure whispering to the kings Kael's anguished choice to save her. And then, a face, unmasked at last. Cypher, their golden eyes gleaming with ambition. Their voice weaving lies through centuries. It's them, she whispered, her eyes snapping open. Cypher, they betrayed my parents. They're the one pulling the strings. Kael's face hardened, realization dawning. The herald, he said, his voice grim. They've always been the king's shadow, manipulating from within. I should have seen it, before they could act. The valley erupted in chaos. The Black Kings descended, their forms cloaked in shadow, their power a suffocating tide. Cypher reappeared at their side, their smile triumphant. See, too late, Lightbearer, they said. The kings will bind you, or the void will claim you. There is no third path. Eleanor's power surged, the heart blazing in her hands. "There's always a choice," she said, her voice ringing with defiance. She raised the heart, its light exploding into a supernova that shook the valley. The kings faltered, their shadows retreating, but Cypher lunged. Their own power, a twisted mirror of her light slashing toward her. Kael threw himself in front of her, his blade meeting Cypher's attack. But the force knocked him back, blood seeping from new wounds. Eleanor screamed, her light flaring wild, uncontrolled. It tore through the valley, shattering spires, driving back the kings and Cypher alike. But the void surged closer, its hunger a living thing, drawn by her power. "Eleanor, stop," Kael shouted, staggering to his feet. "You'll destroy everything." Her vision blurred, the heart's power consuming her, a fire that burned her from within. She saw her parents' faces, their love, their sacrifice, in Kael's eyes, pleading, loving, broken. The prophecy's truth hit her. She could save Eryndor, or destroy it, but not as the king's weapon, not as Verit's queen, as herself. She focused her will iron and channeled the heart's light into a single, radiant pulse. It wasn't destruction, but creation, a barrier of light that sealed the void, its shadows screaming as they dissolved. The kings retreated, their power broken, and Cypher fell, their form unraveling under the weight of her light. "You were meant to break," they gasped, before vanishing into ash. The valley stilled, the heart's glow fading in her hands. Eleanor collapsed, her body drained, her soul raw. Kael caught her, his arms strong, despite his wounds. "You did it," he whispered, his voice thick with awe. "You chose." She looked up at him, her heart aching with love and pain. "I chose me," she said, her voice soft but firm. "But I need you, Kael. No more secrets." He nodded, his hand cupping her face, his touch a promise. "No more secrets," he said, his eyes shining with something deeper than loyalty, love, unguarded and true. The valley glowed with a new light, not the heart's but hers, a dawn breaking over Eryndor. The kings were weakened, the void sealed, but she knew the fight wasn't over. Her power was hers now, but it came with a cost to destiny that would reshape both worlds. As she stood with Kael, their hands entwined, a new whisper stirred in the air. Not the abysses, but something softer. Hopeful, the light-bearer rises. In the distance, a portal flickered, a gateway back to her world door, to a new one, waiting to be forged.